So the next is unconditional love and acceptance. It's connection to growth mindset. Earlier on, I think it was one of the Gordon Head teachers wondered if Maslow maybe was the French or the Russian psychologist. And it's interesting because I had a quote that I wanted to share with you that was about Maslow. So, of course, Abraham Maslow understood the concept of self-actualization. And in order to have the capacity to reach for self-actualization, basic needs must be met. So we can't expect someone to be self-actualized if they're scared all the time, if they're hungry all the time, if they're cold all the time. We have to address those basic needs before we can expect higher level functioning. Now, Bloom was wonderful in terms of helping us understand higher level reasoning. Bloom helped us to understand what kinds of questions, like just factual questions, just rote memory stuff, was not as helpful in the development of the brain in that first 10 to 12 years of life as having children analyze, synthesize, evaluate, apply. So Bloom has been very important to us as well. But for unconditional love and acceptance, the takeaway here is think Maslow over Bloom, okay? So we must start with meeting children's basic emotional and if we can, physical needs before we expect them to do very, very high level math or high, we have to start with securing the foundation of their psyche before we put the icing on the cake, okay? And so in doing so, we must not underestimate the power of unconditional positive regard and emotional validation. So unconditional positive regard is, and that came from Carl Rogers' work. And that was just having no judgment, just allowing the other person to show up as they are, meeting them where they are, and communicating in all the different ways that we can that they're enough, that they're good enough, they're adequate, that they're okay, that they don't have to do backflips to earn the air that they breathe, right? Is that unconditional positive regard. And when we can establish that with families, it makes other things so much easier. And I have an example that I wanted to share with you. When I was teaching, I went to a workshop on positive discipline. I remember this very clearly. It was Lee Cantor's positive discipline. And one of the suggestions was to write random positive notes home. So I would go to a teacher store and get pretty apple pads of paper or pretty pumpkin pads of paper. And I would write random things to children, thinking though, what kind of positive reinforcement is most effective? We know that random reinforcement is more effective than telling a child at random times how well they're doing is more effective than every day at 9 o'clock saying you did a good job, right? So it's more meaningful. And having that reinforcement be positive and detailed. So not just say good job, but oh, I really like how you added the adjective there, like detailed. And also as quick in time as possible to the event. So one of the things that I find with parents all the time, is that there's some kind of big, huge punishment that is way too long away to have any meaning to the child at all. I told him that he can't have his phone back till Christmas. You know, for most children, that is just so far off in the future, it has zero meaning to them. So these are some very important foundational things to think about. When I was teaching and giving out these random positive notes home, I was teaching primary, so I would slip it in a lunch kit, in a boot, in a pocket, right? And I didn't really know for a while if the kids were reading them, if the parents were reading them, like I didn't know. And at Christmas time, I was invited to a military home. My husband was in the military, so we were invited to a Christmas party. And it was the family of one of the children in my class. So it was kind of, you know, these boundary things, but it was what was expected for me to do, is to go. And I remember walking into the kitchen to, I think, get a glass of wine or something. And on the fridge was every single positive note that I had sent home since September. The family put them all on the fridge. And it gave, like, I didn't know if it was working, but I realized then that it was really working. What I learned is when I had established unconditional positive regard early on in a relationship, if I had to come back at some point later and say there's a problem or there was a fight, or the family had more trust that I was coming from a place of good faith, because I had sort of so much positive currency already deposited into their bank that when I had to take something out, it was manageable. So we think about positive regard and these moments of grace. We think of them as corrective emotional experiences. When a child might have lost trust or lost faith with a different adult, but they feel positively and unconditionally accepted and regarded by you, you begin to heal the psyche of the child. That corrective emotional experience makes a difference and promotes resilience.